We will now unveil the real reason Atlantis sank and why it's happening again. Hidden within every ancient flood myth lies a fragment of the most carefully guarded secret in human history. For millennia, mystery schools, those secret societies that preserve forbidden knowledge across centuries, have whispered of a civilization so advanced that its destruction required the intervention of cosmic forces themselves. What they destroyed wasn't just a continent, it was a timeline that would have led humanity down a path of unimaginable power, coupled with spiritual catastrophe. In 1888, Helena Blavatsky, a controversial Russian mystic who co-founded the Theosophical Society and claimed to access hidden archives guarded by Himalayan adepts, shattered the veil of secrecy surrounding this knowledge. The secret doctrine didn't merely reveal what happened to Atlantis, it exposed the hidden laws governing the rise and fall of all civilizations, the cyclical nature of human evolution, and most crucially, the approaching moment when our species must choose between transcendence and repetition of ancient catastrophe. The same forces that reshaped continents 850,000 years ago are stirring once again, but this time the outcome remains unwritten. On Easter Island, remote in the Pacific Ocean, monuments rise into the sky. These massive stone figures are not the work of the diminished descendants who inhabit the island today. According to Blavatsky's sources, they are the final testament of beings whose physical stature far exceeded our own, remnants of a dying age when giants walked the earth. While orthodox archaeology struggles to explain these monuments, Blavatsky possessed something extraordinary: access to what she called the stanzas of Zayan, verses written in Senzar, an ancient language that she claimed predates Sanskrit itself. These weren't dusty manuscripts in some European library. According to her account, these were the ultimate historical records, preserved by secret schools of wisdom keepers who maintained unbroken chains of knowledge across geological ages. What these stanzas revealed contradicts every assumption about human antiquity. The destruction of the primary Atlantean landmass occurred precisely 850,000 years ago, during the climax of what Blavatsky called the Fourth Root Race. But what exactly are these root races? Root races, in Blavatsky's teaching, represent 7 great stages of human development, each lasting millions of years and evolving on different continents. We are currently the 5th root race, the Atlanteans were the 4th. And just like any major transformation, the transition between stages involves complete change, sometimes catastrophic. While scholars question her sources, the patterns she revealed echo in dozens of ancient traditions worldwide, suggesting access to knowledge that conventional history cannot account for. The Atlanteans achieved something that makes our current technological marvels seem primitive. They didn't just manipulate matter. They manipulated what occultists call the astral forces, the subtle energies that underlie all physical phenomena. The astral plane, in Blavatsky's teaching, is the realm of desires, emotions, and psychic forces that interpenetrates our physical world. Through mastery of these forces, they created flying vehicles called vimanas, not primitive aircraft, but sophisticated craft, capable of interdimensional travel. The Sanskrit texts describe these vehicles in detail, but Blavatsky's sources revealed their true power source: controlled astral currents that could manipulate the very fabric of space. But their greatest achievement was also their downfall. They learned to manipulate the very principles of life and death. The chronicles preserved in mystery schools speak of biological weapons that strain credibility, armies of beings that combined human and animal characteristics created through deliberate corruption of evolutionary processes. According to the secret doctrine, these weren't myths or symbols. They were living weapons fashioned by Atlantean sorcerers who had learned to manipulate what Blavatsky calls the astral matrix, the subtle energy template that underlies all physical form. By corrupting this template, they could create new species, designed specifically for warfare and domination. As their mastery over hidden forces advanced, their spiritual development not only stagnated, but reversed. The ancient stanzas record that they cursed the sun daily, rejecting the very source of life and light that sustained their world. In the symbolic language of ancient wisdom, this represents the ultimate spiritual corruption, turning against the principles that make existence itself possible. What destroyed Atlantis wasn't random geological upheaval. It was the operation of what Blavatsky called karmic law, the cosmic principle that every action produces consequences, not just for individuals, but for entire civilizations. When a civilization's spiritual corruption becomes heavy enough, the planet itself violently rebalances. The ancient texts describe disturbances in what Blavatsky calls the wheel, the cosmic pattern by which consciousness expresses itself through physical reality. When a civilization's collective consciousness becomes sufficiently distorted, when its manipulation of occult forces vastly exceeds its spiritual wisdom, the very foundations of material stability begin to shift. The planet responded to Atlantean corruption through what the stanzas call successive disturbances in the axial rotation of Earth. When the wheel runs slower and tilts in every direction, continents sink beneath rising waters while new lands emerge from ocean depths. The poles shift, the magnetic field fluctuates, entire mountain ranges appear overnight while ancient civilizations vanish beneath the waves. This mechanism operates with mathematical precision. The Book of Enoch speaks of the great inclination of the Earth, which is in travail, describing the same axial instabilities from a different initiatic tradition. Every authentic mystery school preserves fragments of this knowledge hidden in symbol and allegory to protect it from misuse. The destruction wasn't punishment in any personal sense. It was planetary course correction, the intervention of cosmic intelligence to prevent a spiritually corrupted civilization from spreading its dysfunction throughout the solar system. Karmic law operates not through vindictiveness, but through natural consequences of choices made by conscious beings. As the fourth root race approached its termination, something extraordinary occurred that reveals how evolution actually operates. The most advanced members of Atlantean society, those who had maintained their connection to what Blavatsky called the hierarchy, received advance warning of the coming catastrophe. The hierarchy in her teaching represents a brotherhood of perfected human beings who have completed their earthly evolution and now guide planetary development from behind the veil of ordinary perception. These are not gods or angels, but humans who have achieved such spiritual advancement that they operate from planes of consciousness invisible to normal sight. Through telepathic channels, direct mind-to-mind communication developed through advanced spiritual training, warnings were transmitted to those whose spiritual development qualified them for preservation. According to the secret doctrine, the message conveyed extreme urgency about preparing for immediate evacuation, with specific time frames given for the approaching catastrophe. The Sons of Light possessed their own fleet of Vimanas, powered by pure astral forces rather than the corrupted energies used by their shadow brothers. These vehicles were used not only to transport the spiritually qualified to safety, but to ensure that the weapons and vehicles of the black magicians could not be preserved for future misuse. The secret doctrine indicates that the advanced members took measures to prevent the escape of those who had corrupted the ancient wisdom, ensuring that their destructive knowledge would perish with them in the coming catastrophe. The hierarchy doesn't prevent the operation of karmic law. It ensures that the seeds of future evolution are preserved while preventing corrupted knowledge from contaminating the next cycle of development. When the waters receded and new continents stabilized, the evacuated populations didn't scatter randomly. They carried out a precisely orchestrated plan to establish what would become our current civilization, the fifth root race, which Blavatsky termed the Aryan race, though this refers to mental intellectual development, not ethnicity. This distinction was later distorted by extremists who completely misunderstood her teachings. These Atlantean survivors possessed fragments of sacred knowledge, mathematical principles that would later surface in Egyptian pyramids and Mayan calendars, astronomical data that enabled precise calculations of celestial cycles, mystical practices that allowed consciousness to adapt to diverse environments. But they brought something more valuable than esoteric arts. They carried the living memory of what had transpired. the knowledge of how spiritual corruption manifests as civilizational collapse. Preserved in the flood myths that appear in every human culture, despite supposed geographical isolation. The Chaldean Sisutrus, the Hindu Vaivasvata, the Chinese Peiran, the Swedish Belgama. These are not separate traditions but fragmentary echoes of the same cosmic event, filtered through different racial memories yet pointing to identical truths about cyclical destruction and renewal. Each culture received portions of the original Atlantean wisdom, adapted to their particular evolutionary needs. The Egyptian mysteries preserved knowledge of death and rebirth cycles. The Hindu traditions maintained understanding of cosmic cycles called yugas and kalpas, vast time periods that govern the rise and fall of civilizations. The Celtic schools guarded secrets of the relationship between consciousness and nature. Most crucially, they established new mystery schools, secret societies dedicated to maintaining occult knowledge across the ages. These schools would ensure that essential wisdom survived through the dark periods that followed, keeping alive the keys to human evolution for the time when humanity would be ready to receive them again. The secret doctrine reveals that Atlantean destruction was not unique, but part of an eternal pattern governing all planetary evolution. This doctrine of cycles states that every root race must face the same fundamental test. Will advancing knowledge of hidden forces be balanced by spiritual wisdom, or will material achievement outstrip moral development? Each cycle follows identical laws. As a civilization develops the ability to manipulate subtle energies, to influence matter through consciousness, and to command the hidden powers of nature, it reaches what the initiates call the point of choice. The more advanced the occult knowledge, the more critical the decision becomes. 4 times since human evolution began, this choice has resulted in planetary convulsion. 4 times entire continents have been reshaped as cosmic law intervened to prevent irreversible spiritual catastrophe. Yet through each transformation, certain knowledge-preserving centers remain intact, what Blavatsky calls the imperishable sacred land that endures through all geological upheavals. This sacred land is not a physical location, but a state of consciousness maintained by the most advanced members of each root race. It represents the continuity of wisdom that transcends physical destruction, preserved in the collective memory of those who have achieved liberation from purely material existence. The mystery schools exist precisely to maintain continuity through these transitions. They are preservation mechanisms for essential knowledge, ensuring that each new root race receives the guidance necessary to potentially transcend the cycle of destruction. But transcendence is not automatic. It requires conscious participation from sufficient numbers of individuals who understand the process and choose evolutionary progress over personal aggrandizement. We are not exempt from this pattern. We are approaching our own point of choice. The ancient texts speak of transformations approaching that will make Atlantean achievements seem primitive by comparison. The 6th root race is already beginning to manifest among the most spiritually advanced members of current humanity, bringing capabilities that transcend our current understanding of human limitation. This evolution involves the development of what Blavatsky calls normal clairvoyance, direct perception of astral currents and access to what she terms Akashic records, a cosmic memory bank containing the history of every thought, action and event that has ever occurred. The 6th root race will naturally possess what we now consider paranormal abilities: telepathy, the ability to perceive thought forms surrounding every individual, direct understanding of karmic patterns that shape destiny. Yet this transformation cannot occur while our current civilization remains trapped in materialistic thinking. We face the same crisis that confronted Atlantis, but with modern tools. Contemporary practitioners of what occultists call the left-hand path, the corrupted use of knowledge for personal power, pursue advancement for purely selfish ends. They seek control through manipulation of information, exploitation of psychological vulnerabilities, development of systems designed to monitor and influence human behavior on unprecedented scales. Meanwhile, the modern Sons of Light work to ensure that advancing capabilities serve evolutionary purposes. They understand that true power comes through alignment with cosmic law, not its violation. The war between evolutionary and entropic forces continues, but the battlefield has shifted from remote Atlantean temples to every screen, every algorithm, every choice about how we develop and deploy transformative capabilities. Understanding these patterns confers both opportunity and responsibility. Every individual who grasps the significance of these teachings becomes an agent of either evolutionary or entropic forces, whether they realize it or not. The mystery schools that preserved Atlantean knowledge through the Great Catastrophe continue their work today. The Theosophical Society maintains Blavatsky's original mission. Anthroposophical centers develop Rudolf Steiner's extensions of her teachings. Various legitimate esoteric communities prepare their members for the psychic challenges of the coming transition. But participation requires more than intellectual understanding. It demands practical application of spiritual principles in daily life, gradual development of intuitive faculties, and willingness to choose collective welfare over personal advancement. Every choice to develop wisdom alongside capability, every decision to use knowledge for creation rather than domination, every moment of alignment with evolutionary rather than purely personal law contributes to the collective outcome that will determine our species' fate. The path forward requires understanding that advancement without spiritual development leads to the same corruption that destroyed Atlantis. Power without wisdom, knowledge without compassion, individual progress without concern for collective welfare. These choices inevitably lead to the same karmic consequences that reshaped continents in the ancient past. Helena Blavatsky didn't write the secret doctrine to satisfy historical curiosity. She transmitted it as both warning and instruction manual for humanity's most critical evolutionary moment. The accumulated wisdom of countless ages crystallizes into a single imperative. Consciousness must evolve or face the consequences of stagnation. The same cosmic laws that governed Atlantean civilization operate with undiminished force today. The Atlanteans achieved remarkable developments in their mastery of hidden forces. They unlocked secrets that we are only beginning to rediscover. They developed capabilities that could traverse dimensions and manipulate the very building blocks of life. But they lacked what we possess: perspective on the complete pattern. They couldn't see their place in the vast cycle of development. We can see the cycle from outside its operation, understand the forces at work, and choose our response consciously. The secret doctrine provides the map. The mystery schools provide the training. The choice remains ours. Whether you accept Blavatsky's vision completely or view it as symbolic truth, the Atlantean pattern reminds us of an eternal principle. Advancement without ethics risks catastrophe. Knowledge without wisdom leads to destruction. Power without responsibility inevitably corrupts. The same forces that once reshaped continents await our collective decision. Will we repeat the cycle of rise and fall, or will we become the first civilization to consciously transcend it? The wisdom preservation networks that maintain knowledge through the Atlantean transition now prepare for another great passage. They seek those who can perceive beyond surface appearances, who recognize eternal patterns operating through temporary forms, who choose service to evolution over personal advancement. Every challenge confronting our civilization represents an opportunity to develop the capabilities that will characterize the sixth root race. Every problem solved through wisdom rather than force, every choice for cooperation over domination, every moment of conscious decision rather than unconscious reaction, builds the foundation for humanity's next evolutionary chapter. The Atlanteans fulfilled their role in the vast drama of consciousness awakening to itself across geological time. Their achievements and failures both serve the greater purpose, providing lessons that guide our current choices. Now the responsibility passes to us. The mystery of Atlantis was never about understanding the past. It was about recognizing the eternal forces that shape destiny itself and choosing to align with those forces consciously rather than unconsciously. The secret doctrine has revealed its pattern. The cosmic timetable has been made clear. The choice that determines whether consciousness transcends its current limitations or remains bound by them awaits our collective decision. Evolution calls through every authentic spiritual tradition, every legitimate effort to develop human potential, every sincere attempt to balance advancing capability with deepening wisdom. The answer we give will echo through ages yet to come. The greatest transformation in human history awaits. The choice is ours. What will we choose?